that Johnny is making here, because that analysis seems to shy away from the central issue. If the ruling party doesn't recognize that ultimately what the Ghanaian people have done is to reject their record, if they think that it's a matter of a few internal rearrangements and a few manipulations internally inside their party, that gives me a lot of confidence about what is going to happen in the second round, because it strikes me that the fundamental issue which is at stake is escaping them. I've heard also Professor Mills giving the same explanation as his, I'm sure, no doubt, future Minister of Communications will be given were he to win. It's a question that we put the wrong people here. Ultimately, what the people are saying is that the record of government of this administration is not one they want to continue. They gave power to a group of people to bring about a significant improvement in their living standards. They have not done so. What are the basic facts about our economy? These are coming from official quarters. 40% of our people live below the poverty line. Average real wages in our country, and by that I refer to what the normal wage can buy, is today a quarter of what it was 30 years ago. Our economy is in identical position that it has been throughout the adult life of our nation.
Given that these circumstances you referred to are not about to change immediately, what do you think will happen with the presidential runoff?
Well, we have taken some corrective measures since the election took place, and that's why there's a bit of quiet on our front. After the elections, what we did was to analyze the results and make a self-criticism and assessment of what had really gone wrong. And we have done that in all objectivity and, truthfulness. And we are taking corrective measures to rectify some of the things that we didn't do very right. And I think that that is happening. And a lot of people who drifted from the party and voted for other parties or didn't go to vote at all, are coming and saying that, look, we didn't come out to vote, or we voted for some other parties, and
this time around,
yeah, we're going to come back and fully and support the party. I wouldn't say that the seats that MPP have won are just because their message went down well. I think that part of the seats they have got are seats that they have gained by default. Certainly we realize that we made mistakes in some constituencies, and that have cost us those seats. There are at least 8 clear constituencies that we shouldn't have lost under no circumstances. But certainly because of the kinds of candidates that we put there, that probably cost us the election.
That the people didn't want these candidates.
The people didn't want these candidates, and they protested quite strongly.
And yet, and yet you insisted on keeping them.
Yeah, that's the point. What happened was a certain process. It's not as if it happened just anyhow. What happened was a process was put in place to identify candidates who should stand in the constituencies. Now, that process involved administering a questionnaire to the constituency executive and then to the leadership of the party in parliament to assess an incumbent MP's performance, both in the constituency and in parliament. And based on the results that came from this questionnaire, it went to the National Executive Committee, and the National Executive Committee decided whether to retain a member of parliament or not to retain. This was done quite objectively, but you would find that probably in some cases the constituency executives had not been too objective in filling out those forms. And so ultimately the kind of information that came up to the National Executive Committee was not a correct assessment of the candidate. Yeah. And so it's just in passing, at least 8 constituencies we just threw away by the kinds of candidates that we put there. A lot of people who probably ended up voting for other parties didn't vote for them because they really liked their message. They did because they were aggrieved about one thing or the other to do with the NDC. But let me say that with regards to Nana's comment about the economy, we went into these elections without any illusions that it was going to be a difficult election. Certainly the economy...
Why? Why were you so sure?
Because of the economic circumstances that were prevailing from about the middle of 1999 till now. The economy has not been very favorable, and economic circumstances have been tight. The cedi lost value quite rapidly from 2007 to about 6,500. And so the economic circumstances were not the best. And so going into this election, we knew that it was going to be difficult. And certainly these other parties exploited it to the fullest advantage.
They have benefited from it.
They have, I think so. And so in the event, I think that the party even did well that they could not win a first-round victory, that we forced them into a runoff. I think that is an evidence of the resilience of the NDC, that even then, in the adverse economic circumstances we faced, coupled with some of the mistakes we made, they still couldn't win a first-round victory. I said that it was a combination of things,
right,
and that we did certain things wrong, and the economic circumstances were adverse. I said so. But I think that when Nana spoke, he said that the populace or the electorate, listened and said, these are people who are saying things we want to hear. And what they were doing was making promises to high heaven, promises that they know in their hearts they cannot realize within the 4-year mandate. They know it. And just because they want to achieve political power, they've made all kinds of promises to the people. They've raised people's expectations so high, and it's easy to make promises. I mean, if we were in opposition and said that we wanted to make promises, you could promise the electorate the moon and deceive them to vote for you. That is essentially what has happened. They've promised them free health, they'll abolish cash and carry, they'll raise salaries 100%, but they know they can't achieve these in the short to medium term.
David, we said that, and therefore, when you're saying that you can improve the conditions of the people, for somebody to turn around and say that you're making unrealistic promises and that therefore you're going to deceive
Obviously,
the people,
share, that's
of course, with the greatest of respect to John, I consider that really rather infantile.
Certainly, when you go into elections, you tell the people what you want to do, but I'm not talking of just telling them what you want to do. We don't think that poverty is a permanent thing in this country. And indeed, if you look at the statistics, poverty is falling. It's not falling as fast as we would want it to. And we need to gear up to make sure that it falls faster. We have changed our economic program with the donor community and our development partners from an enhanced structural adjustment facility to a poverty reduction and growth facility that targets reducing poverty in an aggressive way. Certainly, when we came, the objective conditions required that we invested heavily in restoring the social and economic infrastructure, and that is what we've been doing all these years. We've created a situation, a foundation where this economy can take off by putting back the social infrastructure that had decayed completely. Now, with that kind of foundation, you can begin to look at improving the incomes of people and providing jobs for them. That is an objective condition. And we don't say poverty is going to be permanent in this country. But we're saying that in the short term, you cannot wave a magic wand and change everybody's circumstances. What they have done is to let all the dog chain sellers on the streets, the shoe shine boys and everybody think that within the next 1 year, they're going to create 750,000 jobs, and all those boys are going to get jobs. And that's what I'm saying, that making promises is easy. But you need to be a realist to make the kinds of assurances to the people that you can achieve. Certainly, they are not in the driving seat. They don't know what the actual state of the economy is. And so to just sit down and say that, and I know what they're going to do. I know what they're going to do. Let's take it hypothetically. Wait. Let's take it hypothetically. Just a minute. No.
Are they not accurate?
Let's take it.
For us to be told that we don't know.
I know what they're going to do.
Budget statements. I know official publications.
I know what they're going to do.
Setting out the economic facts of the
David,
situation.
Let's take a short commercial break. Let's take a short commercial break and then we'll come back. Mr. Mahama, what would you do differently to get the economy back on track?
Well, before I begin to talk about that, I was just going to chip in, what I think Nana and Co would do if. No,
I'd like you to tell me what you would do.
If they want. That's an important matter.
If they want. if I know shortly after that happens, they'll come out and say, gentlemen, unfortunately, we didn't know the true state of the economy is worse than we think.
That's what you're telling us, John.
No.
So we don't know.
No, that's what they're going to say.
We don't know the true
and so
facts.
all the promises we made you, unfortunately, we can't deliver immediately. Just keep your belts tightened. In the medium to long term, we shall deliver on those promises. That's what they're going to do.
But tell me what you would do.
A lot of programs are in place already. And are beginning to yield results. We put in the Gateway program. We have the Free Zones program. It's attracting investment into the free zones. Recently we cut the sod to set up a new cocoa processing plant that will process 60,000 tons of cocoa and increase the amount of cocoa that we're processing from about 20% to close to 35%. These are all programs that are in place. We intend to tackle agriculture in a new way that is speeding up irrigation projects all over the country. Right now we have irrigation dams that we're setting up in most of the agricultural areas of this country. We have a program to set up 30 more irrigation dams. That is to continue to move the percentage of our agriculture that is under controlled conditions like irrigation to a larger percentage rather than the present rain-fed conditions. There are programs in all sectors of the economy that are beginning to yield fruits. We think that one of the problems has been unemployment, because there's a steady drift of people from the rural areas into the urban centers, and people are looking more for jobs in the formal economy than previously when they were employed in the informal economy. We intend to increase the rate of economic growth. We've averaged 5% over the last several years, and the intention is to accelerate that growth to 8%, with the intention that as the economy expands, it will create jobs. Often the temptation, and what several of the opposition parties try to do, is to give out a program that seeks to say that they would create jobs artificially. I think that it's more natural to grow the economy, and as the economy grows, it would create jobs and get people working. We have a lot of programs. It's something that we're carrying out and are going to accelerate in the next 4-year mandate.
Weaknesses in that approach.
First of all, I mean it's refreshing to hear that, to hear the communicators of the regime now telling us that they're aware that the path that they have been on before wasn't satisfactory, that it is now necessary to move.
That.
Well, that's exactly what
I said. We've had those programs in place
That's
already.
what I understand. 20 years, which is virtually the period that the NDC has been in power, is virtually 20 years. That period was in other countries' lives enough to transform them from the economies that we have now. If you talk of Malaysia or Taiwan.
These are examples of the countries.
I'm talking about countries that began very much at our level of development, who within a 20-year period moved, in the case of Korea, from 400 per capita income, which was Ghana, 60% people in agriculture like they were there, to economies where per capita incomes is now measured in terms of thousands of dollars. Dramatic transformation of their lives, the lives of the Malaysians who today were seeking to emulate.
How have they done it?
They did it with one fundamental premise. You cannot develop your economy unless you give the producers, whether of agricultural products, whether of industrial products, of services, confidence in their ability to work, take their reward, pay their taxes, and get on with their lives.
The government has not done that.
The fundamental weakness of the Rawlings era is that confidence that should be generated in the indigenous business circles, largely because of the kind of so-called revolutionary actions that were taken, has escaped them. Of course, when the president himself, at the beginning of his tenure of office as a constitutional leader, can get up on a political platform and say that important producers, Ghanaian producers of goods and services, ought not to have their products patronized because they have different political allegiances than his own, and that therefore their goods should be boycotted. You know that the kind of signals that is given to the private sector, and therefore the response of the private sector to the various initiatives that have been tried continues to be sluggish.
John,
I think, let me finish, David, before John. I think that the fundamental difference, get away from all of the niceties of economic policies and the econometrics and the graphs and the 7% and the 4%. The fundamental difference that is going to be made with an MPP administration is the confidence that is going to be generated in the business community that at long last a group have come into office who don't have an equivocal and an ambivalent attitude to private capital and to private business, who clearly support it and don't support it on a selective basis. Somebody is a card-carrying member of the MPP. So even if he's not a particularly successful businessman, he should be helped. But an NDC fellow who's already got something good, solid going, who's therefore looking for the support that would allow him to go bigger, you say, oh no, this character is not a member of our party. So therefore, even if he's employing 300, 400, 500, 600 people and helping the economy grow, you're not going to look favorably on them. You were looking for that once fundamental injection of confidence that people are there who have put their political career behind the idea of private sector development, not monkey socialists like my good friend, my good friend Johnny, the one-time Marxist of the 80s. But we're talking about people who have a strong and principled belief in the private sector, and therefore can generate. Because once that confidence is given to the Ghanaian business,
that'll be the signal.
to the farmer, that really there's an administration in place that is looking after their interests, that is determined to promote their interests. That is not just always the major difficulty I've had in the last 10 years. The language about business is always about foreign investment. Yes, our country needs foreign investment. Yes, there are areas of our economic activity, the capital goods sector, mining, which requires large sums of money, where yes, we require. But it would seem as if somehow or other, in the rhetoric, the whole idea of the indigenous businessman, the indigenous entrepreneur, male, female, those who are actually here putting goods and services together, somehow got lost. We intend to really push that. And we think that if you look at the success stories in the world, whether it is Chile or...
You have given examples of that. Let me get into...
Those are the reasons for that success.
Right.
And it's wrong to take the policing function of government, that people do business legitimately, and malign government or misunderstand that to mean that government is not interested in growing the private sector. This government has a clear policy of putting the private sector in the forefront of the development of the economy. And we have stated that several times, and we have demonstrated it physically. Various facilities have been arranged for the private sector to enable them invest and grow. And I'm sure AGI and PEF will be the first to admit that this government has been very supportive. Government has spoken with the Association of Ghana Industries, with PEF, and try to find out what their problems are, find out how to resolve it. Often the thinking is that there's a problem with access to credit, like credit is the only problem. There are several problems that we need to resolve with regards to the private sector, not only with regards to access to investment and credit, but also in the general entrepreneurial training of the Ghanaian to manage a business. Several times government has supported business and industry and found to its disappointment that the business fails to grow, it collapses. Not because government has not been supportive of it, but because there are other factors that have not been put right. There is a natural tendency among Ghanaians to want to have a sole proprietorship, to control their own business. So however big it grows, they try to retain a certain family stranglehold over the business. And certainly that doesn't help, even with regards to accessing credit. If I was a banker and you came looking for credit and you were a sole proprietor as against a company like Unilever, I would most likely give Unilever 10 billion and give you 3 billion. Because there's no guarantee that if you drop dead tomorrow, your business will continue to survive. But if Unilever chairman, or God forbid, if anything happened, Unilever will continue to exist. So we need to look at things in a very comprehensive manner and not just misstate government's legitimate concern of ensuring that people do business legitimately. And mistake that as a suppression of the private sector. There are a lot of people in business. I'm in the communications industry. Ghanaians are in the forefront of the information technology industry. They're coming and they're taking licenses. They're setting up internet service provision services, data transmission. These guys don't know what's going on in the economy. The economy is growing, is expanding. Ghanaians are going into business and succeeding, and government is encouraging them to do so. Suddenly, we know that as Ghanaians create wealth or get richer, the economy grows. And who would want to prevent that? Who would want to stop that?
Don't let's go to the detail. Let me just say finally, so we can wrap up this. Finally, are you prepared for whatever outcome there is? Do you feel that we can complete this process in a decent and civilized way? Are you prepared for it? Both of you, whatever the outcome of the election.
The demand that we have a system of government in our country which is dependent on the decision of people in the ballot box. That has been the historic purpose of the NPP and its forebears. To have a system of government in this country where those who are in control of government are under the control of those who are governed. That was Danqua's statement when he launched the UGCC. And the 53-year history of this party has been an attempt to bring that into reality. We believe that that is the best system of government that a nation can have.
So you will accept whatever...
And that, therefore, we have fought, and in this NDC era, we have fought since 1992 to have an even electoral playing field, so that and a transparent and fair one, so that whatever comes out of it, who has agitated for a fair playing field more than the NPP? Each time we've been balked by the NDC, they even take the issue of a thumbprint to the court. A thumbprint ID, which is no identification, becomes an issue for them.
So the outcome, whatever the outcome you...
I'm saying, what we're saying is that we hope, and we believe that the process on the 28th of December is going to be free, it is going to be fair, it is going to be transparent. Right. If it is, you can be sure that whatever the outcome of that election we'll be happy with. Because for us, the victory of the 28th of December is not a victory for the NPP. It's a victory for democracy and for Ghana. That's a very much more important victory than the victory of whoever is temporarily for 3 or 4 years occupying the seat of power.
John?
Well, I think that...
The outcome. I'm talking the outcome.
I think that I should tell this to Mr. Akuffo. He was on Vibe today, and they asked him, if he would accept the outcome. And he said that if things were normal, then he should emerge as president. That is a very dangerous opinion to hold, that you can only emerge as president if things are normal. I think it's wrong. They did this before December 7th, and he's repeating it again.
What
we
about,
are going into the election. We're going to give it our best shot, and we're confident that we can win victory. And would accept the results of the election.
Whatever the result.
If they are free, fair, and transparent.
Thank you. Saying the
same thing you said. Thank you, John. Join us again next week.
In the world of business, in the arts, in the professions, whichever way it is, and say, these are the role models we're after. We're after a Ghana whereby somebody can become a Kwabena Darko. That's the Ghana we're after. We're after a Ghana where somebody can be brilliant communications minister. I say it with, and we are on different sides, but I recognize the skills and the abilities. Let's look at a place whereby we are saying to ourselves as a nation, we are going to encourage the best. We're going to make sure that those who have the ability, who have the opportunity, do as much as they can for this country, and leave behind this language which has that some people are the only people of integrity in this country. Only one party has men of integrity. Everybody else, somebody you don't know, you met 4 years ago, is the only person who is a man of integrity in our country. Everybody else is a crook or a thief. That language has been extremely damaging to our country.
You call yourselves men of integrity, right?
No, but we're not involved in that language. We're interested in performance. We're interested in the people who can perform. And what we are saying is that when we come, because I think it will be not a question, as Johnny is saying, of if. I think it is when we come, which will be clear on the 28th of December. You are going to see a new tenor in the public discourse of our country. Because our thing is going to be about all Ghanaians who can assist in pushing the Ghanaian ship through these turbulent seas. That person is welcome on board the NPP bandwagon. That's the language. And we're no longer going to have the language of thieves, of people are corrupt. What is the language we've heard in Rawlins this time? Of course, clearly, he's talking a different language from the past. I don't think there's any doubt about it. Whether he will, in fact, be able to do something.
When even before the runoff, the minority leader in parliament says they're going to set up a commission to investigate 1979 and 31st December.
There's nothing new about about what the minority leader said. It's been a proposal that has been on the table. He said it in Parliament last year. He has said it several times.
Then you've hidden it on your campaign trail. You haven't said that you are going to inquire into 79 and 81.
Never hidden it.
You haven't come out clearly with it. They've gone ahead to say they're going to reconcile the nation, they're going to heal the wounds and all that. And then just before the runoff, you come out and say we're going to set up a body to investigate 79 and 81.
That's not compensate the victim.
No, we think it's wrong.
To compensate the victim.
Well, and what we're saying is why target only that era? Why target only that era in our history? That is what we're asking.
We're talking about the living. There's no way you can reconcile.
People are alive today from Nkrumah. Well, people are alive.
No. I was coming to something else.
Leave Dr. Dankwa out. But I'm saying that people are alive today who suffered in 1966.
And their attitudes. I believe that now.
Well, the same applied to your side.
Not at all. We've always.
There were some good bills that you opposed, like the 2.5% VAT for education. They opposed it. I'm sure there are people in the opposition who would have wanted to vote.
We oppose the VAT.
But
we oppose the VAT,
and therefore
we oppose the VAT fundamentally.
And so when you come to power, you're going to withdraw the VAT and replace it with the sales tax. Are you going to do that? Are you going to do that? Are you going to withdraw VAT and replace it with the sales tax?
Yet another increase. You have increase upon taxes. When the efficient use of the revenues is not clear to many of us.
But the bottom line is that Parliament would be different.
I'm saying the Parliament will be different. Yeah. The opportunity for cooperation in that Parliament are going to be enhanced. Yeah. Parliament coming out as a watchdog body over the executive, its functions are going to be considerably strengthened. Yeah. We're not going to have a Parliament that is going to hey the passage onto the Supreme Court of some of the most undistinguished judges in our recent history, the Sapons and the rest of them. That is going to come to an end. We're now going to have a Parliament. There's nothing libelous about it. There's nothing libelous about it.
Surely.
I don't like the statements overblown to indicate that because the president said that, the business community is living in fear. That's the impression that Addo is trying to create. Unfortunately, that is not the situation. Business is growing. We have come from a certain period, coming from the PNDC era, into the democratic period. We started an experiment in democracy again. Everybody has been learning since then. You cannot take certain statements that were made in a certain period, in a certain context, and use them to characterize the history of the country since then till now. I think that is wrong.
In between the runoff. For instance, there seems to be a deliberate attempt to stoke up ethnic and tribal sensitivities in our country.
Give me an example.
What is going on? People wearing MPP shirts and going into particular areas where they're so-called aliens and causing troubles. We're going to throw you out. We're going to do this. The Daily Graphic is headlining incidents that have occurred.
Yeah, these are happening. Why would you say that people wearing NPP shirts?
Because I believe that some of it is
you're suggesting that it's
a work of agent provocateur. That's exactly what I'm saying. I'm saying this.
That's the problem with NPP. That's the problem with NPP.
What is that problem?
They blame everybody else for their faults.
We're not blaming everybody for our faults.
So what is happening?
We have not had some problem being in opposition.
Some of our supporters,
even though we knew,
some of our supporters have been harassed, after the December 7th results started coming out. In my own constituency, several of the NPP supporters, known NPP supporters, went around telling people that, look, let the results come. If we come out victorious, you guys are going to have to run away from this.
In your constituency, which you won so convincingly.
Yes, I did.
I'm surprised to hear that.
I did.
Because I live in a constituency which has a very polyglot, a very cosmopolitan and diverse groups of people. We've got in Abuakwa, which is the biggest constituency in the eastern region. I think it is the most polyglot constituency probably in the entire nation. Everybody has substantial groups of people there, Krobos, Eves, so-called northern.
Well, at least one would have expected that
none
you
of that
issue
is
a
happening.
Statement.
We have said so.
You'd issue a statement and restrain your supporters.
It's just part of this whole tension thing that really will not get into. Perhaps it's just one of these things that comes with
in the exuberance of the results and them winning certain seats.
I believe that what is happening is a deliberate attempt by the ruling party, desperate as it is. We've even had a measure of the desperation when Issoufou Ali goes on the radio before to say that Akuffo should be arrested for treason. because he went on television to say,
Oh, no.
well, what I'm saying,
We talked about it on
that's a measure. These are a measure of desperation.
No.
And these kind of things are extremely dangerous to the unity and the coherence of our country. I am saying this.
That's what you'd like to
Whatever we are doing whatever we can on our part to make sure that our supporters conduct themselves in all legality. After all, they are on the verge of accomplishing one of the most historic events in African, not just in Ghanaian, but in African politics, to overthrow a regime as entrenched and as determined to hold on to power as the NDC. The people, just by a peaceful expression, can go to the ballot box, old ladies holding on to their stake, and determined that before they die, they will thumbprint the Osino sign. We are on the verge. Why would we want at this stage, having had such a long climb up this mountain,
before December
today,
7th,
to come forward and then start misconducting ourselves?
Before December 7th, it was even difficult to wear an NDC shirt in Kumasi. It was difficult because you got heckled, you got...
you can't even have MPP agents in the Volta region.
Why
not
not?
a question of wearing T-shirts. They're arrested by the police.
So you're suggesting
they're arrested and brought to Accra by the IGP.
The results start to come out, and in the exuberance, your people go threatening people. And why would you want to say that people would wear your party T-shirts and go threatening people?
Because it didn't happen in the
gentlemen, let me ask you finally.
It didn't happen in the heat of it.
Let me ask you
It happened days afterwards, and you have to ask yourself about the calculation. If something was happening on that Thursday night, one can understand it. But 3, 4, 5 days later is before these stories start emerging. You wonder about the source of these activities.
It happened because your flag bearer went on TV and said that he thought he had won. And created an impression in the mind of
don't let's go into the detail. Let me just say